if today we have to increase every single person's salaries based on what we assume the business can do today, right? Is that sustainable? If I can pay you a 300% increase in salary and pay pressures the same thing, yes, I can do that today because I've got X amount of money in the account. But can I do that for the next 12 months?
Do you guys even like listening to HR podcasts where we go deeper into uncovering human dynamics in the workplace? Or do you think that we are just tools for management or the fun police?
Welcome to the other side of HR, where we spill the tea, debunk the lies and the myths, and navigate the corporate world together. So buckle up and enjoy the ride as we dive into the truth, the lies, and everything in between. Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another episode of The Other Side of HR. On today's episode, we will be having a guest. Ife, you're welcome to this episode.
Thank you so much.
How excited are you to be on this podcast?
It's always interesting being around HR. But like I told you guys, I'm not a professional, but I'll try to, answer your questions.
Honestly, we needed you here because you're not an HR professional, but we wanted your expertise for this topic that we would be talking about. And I'm quite excited to talk about this topic. Today's topic is HR realities in a struggling economy.
Right.
Guys, I don't know if you guys have been going grocery shopping, but it has been crazy.
Not just grocery, everything is very expensive.
Yeah. I mean, 3 years ago, a cup bag of rice cost about, say, 12,000 naira, and we're complaining that it was expensive at the time.
Yeah.
Then it rose to about 35,000, and now it's itching over 100,000 naira.
Yes,
bag.
absolutely.
It's crazy. So yeah, it is really, really trying times for everyone.
Okay, so currently you're a manager in your organization, Ife.
Well, we could assume that.
And so I want to know, people who report to you, have they come to you to say, oh, what's happening? Is the organization talking about, doing something for us? Have they even complained to you generally about how inflation is affecting them?
So it's not just people who report directly to me. It's almost the same tune across the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Managers, non-managers, junior officers, everybody's complaining about it, right? So the the prior perception is, we expect that management is doing something about it. They want management to do something about it. But then, it's an economy. It's not just one segment of it that it's affecting. It's affecting the entire thing. So just as it's affecting those of us who are receiving salaries, also the organization's ability to generate revenue sometimes is also
affected.
Hindered, right? So it's a general issue, which, But yeah, even last week, one of my colleagues was still saying, are they going to increase this allowance and that allowance because, things are so expensive now. It is a real concern. Yeah.
So as a manager, right? I'm always going to be trained as a manager at you, right? What is one thing you tell them? How are you able to manage? Because you know that this affects morale. Everybody already knows that Joke is my line manager. So I'm always asking her, Madam, what's going on? When are you going to increase this month? Again, but as a manager, how are you able to first manage these people before, it gets to the business or even the HR team?
So first off, everybody has to understand that we're in it together, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, okay, especially managing your team.
Sure.
But I think from a standpoint of communication, them understanding, yes, that's it. Then two, things are difficult everywhere, right? But I think it's important to always have that open line of communication, right? And then treat people with dignity and some level of transparency. If you can't do anything at all about it, I'm not letting them communicate, but also, impact or, get things worse. But from my own side, luckily, the organization agreed that for the sake of certain issues around cost of fueling, transportation, so they agreed that line managers at their discretion, can allow for 2 working days for individuals.
Work from home or work from the office?
Sorry, remote work, right? And then the other days work from the office. Again, these are the discretion of the line manager. So if, for instance, there's some pressing issues and I need you in the office, you have to show up. But on days when there are very, limited activities or there are things that you can manage remotely, then, I could, of course, it's my discretion, let it work remotely. So I think that's one way I'm contributing.
I love how you're diving already into solutions that, we can look at for this economy. And one of the things that really bothers me is the fact that, we're giving our all, right? But everything the same salary I was earning last year is the same salary I'm earning this year. Joke, please take notes. Right? And, cost of everything is way expensive. The amount I was spending for transportation last year is different from what I'm spending this year. The amount I'm spending on feeding, the amount I'm spending on everything. It's like, I feel a type of way still doing the work. How do I... Not every organization has this thing that your organization has done to give you, to give managers rights to say, oh, okay, you can give people work from home days. Not all organization can do that. There are some jobs that you cannot even work from home, right? And those organizations also do not even have like the money to say, oh, we're increasing salaries, we're doing this, we're doing that. How do you think, again, not from the HR point of view, which is why you're here, like from a business person, because Ife is a business planner. So from the business point of view, how do you think business can manage this?
So there are all kinds of strategies that one can employ. I had spoken about you need to always be open and communicate, right? And then there are other creative approaches one could take. So it's one issue, but it's not the only issue.
Yeah.
Right. Workload, mental stress, the impact of commutes and all of those would only compound it. So while you might not be able to manage the monetary expectations, you might be able to manage the relationship that you have with your people such that it's not so unbearable for them. I mean, yeah, I would always want to give out more money if I had the money to give, but it's not up to me, first of all. And then there are all kinds of things that one has to consider. There are the economy itself. There are other economic indices that are not making the businesses as profitable as they used to be, all of that. So it's just basically, I think it's just a matter of dialogue, continuous dialogue, basically, right? I mean, we've not started talking about strategies that companies can adopt to help to alleviate this. But I think for one, it's important to be transparent. So a good example, we say the company is struggling, right? We say the economy, inflation rates are increasing and things are getting more difficult. And somebody approaches you as the HR or the MD and says, oh, I need some salary increment. And they're like, oh, we're struggling. We can't afford to pay you this amount of money, all of that. But then next week, you're buying a brand new vehicle, right? Which is, even if it's a personal car, right? You might not think it speaks a lot, but it does.
It makes people
so it's like, I can't get a raise, but you can afford to buy a brand new car,
Yeah.
Or, you're taking some exquisite, luxurious trips to other parts of the world. You've not paid your people's salaries. You're telling them on a day-to-day basis that you can adjust your salaries. There's no money to do all of this. But then you're in first-class flights to, I don't know, some very luxurious resorts. Even if it's for your personal vacation, you have to think about the implications of these actions on the morale of your people, right? So it's a complete ecosystem.
Okay, so do you think that? So I know that initially you talked about the fact that people expect management to do something, right? But however, do you think that people also think that it is HR's duty to ensure that management does something? Because management sounds broader, but I know that most of the time, people always say, oh, what is HR doing? HR, when are we getting an increment? HR was happy, knowing that I feel like everyone forgets that HR is also an employee.
Well, while you're right about HR being an employee, right, you can't remove the responsibility of HR from all of this.
Sure.
Because HR basically are the mediators between the employees. I mean, yes, you're an employee, but you're the mediator between the larger section of the employees and the other senior employees who are the management personnel or the executives, right? So you have, as HR, I think you have to be able to paint the picture of what's going on and, push that message of empathy across. So you also live in the same economy. You've had conversations, on the corridors about how people are struggling. Some people don't eat 3-course meals anymore. Some people some people don't have to what's the word now?
Are there people who actually eat 3 times a day?
Yeah, there are people.
When I was growing up, I was like,
talking about when you were growing up, please.
So and since you're closer to people and you know what's going on, right? The other side of it is, yes, you're closer to management, and sometimes you are abreast about the financial situation of the company. But then you have to find a way to emphatically pass the message across to both sides, right? There has to be a balance somehow. And sometimes it's not necessarily about a monetary change or a change in how much somebody is earning. Yes, it could be, that's important, and that could make a whole lot of difference. But there are other creative, approaches that one could take that might not be too expensive on the business, to help. In the past, some companies had staff bosses, right? Over time, staff bosses, some companies have stopped those approaches. But now that people are, again, maybe I shouldn't delve into strategies to help but they're just, my thought is there are other ways that one could approach it, even from an HR perspective. Yeah, you will always be in the middle. HR is always going to be in the middle. It is literally what you are hired to do. You are the shield of the organization, and you're also the shield of the employees. You have to find a balance, right? And you don't have to be seen to be playing one side over the other. Otherwise, it just gets messy for you.
Okay, but to Precious's question, right? So in an environment where, or in a company where like things are, just pretty hard, right? Like money isn't coming in, we're not making money. Okay, so it's possible that not everybody knows that, right? But a company that, that's very transparent, carries its people along, I'm assuming that, this should be like something that every company does. But let's say it's a company where, maybe people are also aware of the fact that they're not making money, just things are just not going, as it should be. And how sometimes, you also have like just overbearing people, right? So they just do not
care.
They just do not, it's almost as if, I just want my own money. Like, I just want to just take care of myself, I just want to be okay, and knowing that the company isn't making money. So how do you manage that kind of situation?
So there's something we refer to as sustainability, right?
I didn't hear that.
Sustainability.
Okay.
A friend of mine says this thing very often. And just because you can pay for something doesn't mean you can afford it, right?
True.
I could have £1 million in my bank account and I can pay for maybe a brand new iPhone or something, And so I have that device. But then every time I'm guiding myself against if it falls, what happens? Because if it falls tomorrow, probably need 150 or 200K to replace the screen, and I don't have that money. So because I can buy it today, doesn't mean I can afford it. Now, sometimes we need to look at businesses from that point of view. Everybody is in business for the long term. Nobody wants to. Businesses are built to make profits, but then the sustainability of the business is also important. So if today we have to increase every single person's salaries based on what we assume the business can do today, right? Is that sustainable? If I can pay you a 300% increase in salary and pay Precious the same thing, yes, I can do that today because I've got X amount of money in the account. But can I do that for the next 12 months? Can I do that for the next 1 year? I also think about contingencies. What if the economy goes even worse than it is today, right? What of my other obligations? I have lenders. I have all kinds of regulatory requirements. What happens? So in the long run, the question is, are we going to be at a better place if we take these decisions now, or what happens to us? So yeah, if somebody is overbearing, even despite the fact that they understand or they know what is happening, the other question you should ask is, you may perceive or expect that they know what is going on, but do they really know what is going on, right? So there's a difference in it. Your perception could be, everybody knows what's going on in the business. They should not be acting this way, but do they really know what is going on, right? Sometimes we claim we are transparent, but in truth, there's so much. There's
so much hidden as well.
There's so much hidden. A good example, you as HR, you can't have information about how the leverage on the company is. If it is very, very huge, you probably cannot open your mouth to tell
other people,
employees and say, we're in X amount of debts, and if you're not careful, in the next 2 weeks you might not have a job or something, right? You need to know how to manage that. But at the same time, there's an amount of information that you are also expected to provide to them, such that they might not get the full picture, but at least they understand what's going on. And if we've done all of that and someone still doesn't understand what's going on, and I'm sorry, it's usually more important for the business owner about his sustainability of his business than, So if at this point in time it's not working for you, again, I'm not sending the message out there to people to sack people, but it might be time to start considering the system in which it's usually the last approach when it comes, laying off people is it's not a very good thing. But sometimes some business are pushed to that point, and it's easier if people don't have foresight when they make decisions. Like I said, if I give you a 300% increment in salary and everybody's happy today, and in December we can no longer pay people's salaries, and then we now have to let people go. Maybe we'll let half of us go, right? But then the other half of us, we're probably looking at, we need to reduce the salaries as well. So in the end, we're even in a worse place than we were earlier on. So in the long term, it's important that, yes, while these initiatives are key, you have to think about their sustainability, especially as it impacts the business. So that's my thought there.
Okay, so do you believe that HR has a strong enough voice
So
at
if-
the leadership table when it comes to making these economic decisions.
Hold on, and let me just add on that. Especially in an organization where HR reports to CEO, COO,
CEO,
Right.
CFO.
right? So in that kind of situation,
So ideally, I think the HR team, the HR lead should report directly to the owner of the business, right?
or board of directors.
There are peculiar cases, and it's also very common for HR to report to CEO. Very common.
So I don't think even, I mean, depending on the structure of the organization,
Yeah.
there's some entities where the HR lead reports directly to the MD, and then there's also a line of reporting to some section of a committee on the board level, that oversees human resource. I mean, some really advanced structures push it to be more efficient, have those kinds of things in place. Now, but if HR is not able to, HR has to be able to play both sides. And if they're not able to, it's usually I don't think they are playing HR well if they're not able to, right? Again, it's easy for me to say, I know.
Very.
I'm not in that shoe.
Yeah.
But you see, we've got an organizational structure. We've got policies in place. We've got procedures. We've got all of these things. We've got core values. We've got all of these things in place, which we expect to drive the business. I know that there's a challenge of, it's a one-man business and whatever it says happens or whatever it wants to do happens and all that. But you have to think deeply about it. Why are you there as HR? Right? You're human resources. You're managing human resource. Yes, you are the mid person between, this person and this team and that team. But in the end, you're managing human resources. So if you're not able to push or fight for your people, to a reasonable extent, then maybe you're not doing what you ought to be doing. And again, it doesn't mean that because you fought, you get what you want. But sometimes it's even easier for the people to understand that, yes, people have tried, HR tried, but it didn't go as they expected because some other circumstances or considerations have been made, factors have been made, which doesn't make these propositions beneficial.
Well, while I hear you, first things is, even if HR is fighting, we wouldn't go out and say this is what we're doing because first it's behind closed doors. So regardless of whatever HR is even doing, a lot of people would not even have an oversight into that. That's one. Secondly, there's a limit to how much fight we can effectively do when at the end of the day you're reporting to either the owner of the business who says it's my way or the highway, or you're reporting to a dictator who also says it's my way or the highway. I know for a fact, right, that there are a lot of human resource professionals who have come up with proposals, come up with a lot of ways that they do know or think that, businesses can run their business better, more efficient, and at the end of the day, leaving people more motivated and happy to work. However, at the end of the day, all these things do need approvals, right? Imagine that I come today, I say, let's do this. You say, no, do this other way. Let's spend this. No, do this other way. And I keep doing that. However, at the end of the day, what people see is, we're not doing this. We're not spending money on that. We're not doing this and that and that and that. At the end of the day, right? And I tell you, I kid you not, every time there is a bad news, say, we're downsizing, we're reducing salary, we're stopping this.
HR.
Who's giving that news? HR. But just tomorrow, just say, want to increase salary.
It's the CEO, the one giving the announcement.
I want to announce to you that we have worked hard. We have done this, And it's okay. I already know that HR is going to be the beating bag, the punching bag. We're fine with that.
Always the
However,
punching
right,
bag.
we need to understand that HR is already doing that work. But there is a limit to what we can do when we do not have we don't have the right to say we would implement this without the approval of the people who give the approval.
And also to add to what you said as well, I think that it's also very important that, whoever HR is reporting to, be the CEO, be the COO, whoever it is, it's very important that the person is very people-centric. Because in my experience, right, and also based on researches and what I've heard about people in different companies, if you have a leader that is very interested in people, HR pretty much doesn't really have to do a lot. Doesn't really have to do a lot. But if you have a leader who is majorly just profit over people, you would struggle. I agree with what you said. Don't get me wrong. I agree with what you said. You have to be HR. You have to be able to, get your point across. Get their buy-in and all of that. But most of the time, it's the most difficult thing to actually do.
Okay. So yeah, I hear you, right? And I must just say, first of all, that if you have somebody who's hired a full HR team and is not able to take their advice on board with respect to how to manage the people, then maybe the person doesn't deserve an HR team in the first place. Right?
I agree with you. In my
So-
last CIPM conference, we had talked about things around just ethics in HR. And I remember that it was a lawyer and a couple of HR professionals on the panel. I remember that at the end of the panel, what the lawyer said was that, but I have a special advice for HR team here. If at the end of the day, if you've done all that you need to do, if you've talked, gone through your policies, just ensure that, you are adhering to regulations, and your CEO or whatever it is still saying no, then you need to start planning your exits.
Exactly. Because
That's not the place for you.
What we've done over time, right, is we've negatively reinforced bad behavior, right? And it's from everything. So things are not going, in a lot of establishments, you now have unions who need to fight for what they refer to as their own rights, yes, right. In some cases, they are menaces, but in some cases, they've also been very instrumental in helping to push improved, remunerations or, workspaces, which ideally shouldn't have to come, it doesn't have to come to, shouldn't have to come to, right? But because of things like this, such things have been instated, right? Again, we're not talking about union here. So the question is, so HR has done all of that, spoken to people, tried to manage things and stuff, and just seems like they're not getting what they ought to get. They're not getting the right support, approvals. Those are exceptions, right? I know there are a lot, but then I expect that over time, those kinds of establishments, those kinds of people, right, will transition, or at least there will be a change in the culture generally, right? So, but again, still doesn't remove HR's responsibility, right? I know the challenges are a lot. Engaging with upper management, right, and then helping them understand what the lower management is going through, and then coming to, like I said again, sometimes all these people that are very difficult with respect to approvals and stuff is when there's money involved. If it's some kind of strategy that doesn't involve
money,
huge chunks of money, right, and
Should approval,
they will be quick to issue the approvals, right? So in some cases they don't also see the value in what it is. There's in HSC there's something called a lab, right, as low as reasonably practicable. You could have a solution to a problem, but you're going to be spending millions of dollars to solve it, and you're now wondering, so the risk, is it even worth that?
The amount of money you're spending.
So we're now like, okay, let us see how we can manage this by being creative about the approach to it, and then just having the risk be as low as reasonably practical, because you cannot eliminate all risks, really.
Sure.
So it's the same approach. Well, I hope at least the business owner allows you transparency to see what the business, the entire organization to be able to see what the business is doing or how the business is performing, right? So that in a way could also drive their attitude. Good example. 2 years ago, a business that was doing so well, right? Revenues were like in excesses of, they were huge. And then all of a sudden, the economy is going sideways. Revenues are also dwindling, right? People are seeing the red. You don't have to tell them that, guy, see, we might not be able to sustain all of those initiatives that we were doing before they use their heads to
understand.
Because they can see it. Last year we did excess of this amount of money. This year we're doing, it's even a miracle that the business is able to pay us our salaries. So you're like, what? I get it, things are hard, but maybe I can also, try to, let's just push through this phase. Again, that's where transparency is key, because if people feel like you're not being truthful, they will frustrate you.
Sure.
So your attitudes as well matter. But if they see last year we were even doing so well last year and our salary was this way, right? And you promised us that, okay, when we start doing better, we'll get some increments out of that. This year, turnovers are in the excesses of millions of naira or billions of naira. And then you're telling me that there's no money. We're telling you that economy is getting worse. We need some kind of adjustments, to be able to survive. And you're saying simply, they can see the picture, they can see the figures on the screen. You published it to them, and you're saying something different. It will definitely, result in some kind of mistrust, and it could just result into some really full snowballing of motivation and
issues.
Issues generally.
Okay.
So again, transparency is key. I cannot expect that. Well, as a reasonable person that I think I am, right?
I like the disclaimer.
Thank you. So if I was in an organization that 2 years ago was doing so well, and I know how beneficial it was for me, all of a sudden the books are not adding up. Some issues are happening and things are going sideways. I'm probably thinking, okay, if I'm looking at it critically, I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense. How are they even able to pay us our salaries? And then maybe somebody is saying that they're taking loans to do it, just for you to sustain the business and all that. I wouldn't feel comfortable coming up and say, you know what, it is time, it is now that I need some more money, right? And that's where HR comes in, right? That's empathy. When people know that you at least care for them, they don't mind. They don't. People will do the most ridiculous things, and it's in hindsight they'll be like, wait, what was going on there when I was there? I mean, I'm sure Precious can relate in one of the organizations in the past. I know how people will struggle and do their best and do everything, but it just seemed like remunerations were not making sense. And it was always, oh, we're not doing so well, we're not doing so well. But you can see that it seems like some people are doing so well more than some other people. Even new persons, new employees are so well better paid off than old people. Like, what's going on here? And then people now start to say, oh, wow, it seems like out there it's even a better space. It's well valued more out there than in here. So once one person started, 2 people took the move, 3 people. The next thing was mass exodus.
Yeah.
So those are implications on businesses. And if you're thinking business sustainability, you need to think about how you're going to manage all these issues holistically. So that, you cannot please everybody over the business, but you cannot also not be fair in how you also manage the expectations of people from the business, right?
While Ife has talked so much about a lot of the solutions, right, I'm going to start off with transparency and communication, right? Ife has spoken a whole lot on revenue, right? And while it's possible that organization gets revenue, they also have expenses that could be eroding
Thank you.
The revenue.
Thank you. Now, the operational expenses are a huge chunk. You don't want to know how much some companies spend on OPEX. Logistics companies spend so much on fuel that when you look at how much they declare as revenue versus somebody eventually declares profits,
it's terrible.
It's ridiculous, right? And businesses have their different challenges. Some of the businesses are completely different. OPEX is very, very limited to just a few staff and a few things. And revenue is to the roof. And there's a very huge profit margin, so they can play around with that.
Yeah.
But some organizations are not structured that way. Sometimes it's a fault of the system itself. Sometimes it's just the way the business has to operate, right? So again, while I talk about revenue, it's not just about the numbers that are up there. It's usually maybe the margins also matter, right? Because you could also have made so much revenue and your OPEX is just almost at par with
chewing it, there's nothing.
So when you say you're increasing sales salaries, you're actually increasing your OPEX
as well. Exactly.
And so if you saying the figures and revenue and OPEX are almost matching, and it's like there's nothing the shareholders are taking out of there as business owners, and then you're expecting that they should increase the OPEX again, that means that at some point
you would be in red, negative.
Or the shareholders will be bringing money from their own personal pockets or taking loans to pay. That's not how business should operate. Right. So
so again, to make that point as a solution, it's important that business communicates beyond just your revenue. People even need to understand OPEX. You see people like, oh, I want to pay for this, I want to pay for that, I want to pay for this, I want to pay for... Is it important? And I'm not even talking about remuneration for employees. It's what you're using. Okay, now you need to get a vendor. You need like 5 vendors. You've gotten 5 vendors. Look at which is offering you the cheapest. That would also give you the best quality. Because again, you don't want to say, oh, I want the cheapest and this person is giving me trash.
So I talked about trust earlier, right? So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes it's management's trusts. It's management that doesn't trust the employees.
Okay.
Some employees are actually business owners in their own rights.
Sure.
Right? They've had side gigs, side deals with all kinds of establishments, and now they're even making so much more money than even the business itself. In a way, they are milking the business dry. There are reasons why the OPEX is that high. So imagine I was a CEO of a company like that, right? I know for a fact that everybody on the shop floor has side gigs. They have all kinds of cuts they're getting from vendors that are doing the business and all that. And I know that it is not the salary I'm paying them that is making them this, And then you come and say, oh, we're looking at, cost of living adjustment. I already know that my OPEX is so huge because of you people. And then you want more money. I'll just get out of here, man. But I think, so while that's not an excuse, I think human beings will always find ways to exploit systems.
Sure.
So what's important is finding the best, the tightest processes such that it's difficult to exploit. If you have those in place and you have proper ethical considerations, proper consequence management and all of that, then at least management understands that whatever we are spending, it's not some round tripping that someone is making some money off of. It is actually for the operations, and whatever revenues they're making, at least they're able to optimize their costs Because cost really is one of the major, biggest
Issues.
issues with businesses, right?
Yeah.
Optimizing the costs is very, very, very key. So, but again, for an establishment that doesn't take HR seriously, I don't think they will take any other policies or procedures seriously. They probably jump every other gun,
Sure.
and then just they don't take risks seriously, don't take anything seriously. So, so these are underlying issues that somehow always come to the forefront in managing businesses.
Okay, so just one more question for me. What is like a stand-up thing that you think that HR has done in this time?
So-
Either where you've worked or maybe people around
Something
you
you've heard.
have mentioned.
So where I worked, right, this initiative didn't even come up very recently. It came up some 3 years ago. I think it was when initially we had that increment in cost of fuel, right? Maybe like fuel came to like 650 or something.
That was like maybe 2022.
Thereabout.
Yeah.
And when you consider how much you were spending on fuel before versus how much you're spending at the time now, it was huge. So
Absolutely.
what HR thought about then was, during the pandemic, we were able to leverage on remote work,
Yeah.
and it worked. It was effective, well, to a large extent. So can't we also leverage on that now, right? And so the thought then was the increase was temporary. It will still come down. So
Yeah.
we can have people work remotely. So
Until then.
they sent out memos, got executive memos approval. The idea was, work 2 days off and then 2 days remotely and then 1 day in the office, which largely reduced transportation costs for a lot of people. Some people have cars. I mean, yes, the toll is high, but maybe not as high as people that go from bus stop to bus stop and spend all of that money. People who are spending money. Then you think about how much people are spending versus how much they're earning. It's like, so what's the point of all of this, right? So that's one way, right? There are so many other ways. HMO is one way I know that entities help to reduce costs of living, especially with respect to healthcare services.
Having to pay out of pocket. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a
'Cause
luxury.
I can't even imagine how much hospitals charge right now.
It's a luxury
if you have HMO.
if you have a robust HMO. Actually, cost of medicine is higher than it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cost of medical services are so much higher now.
Even consultations.
Right.
That's
My point exactly.
crazy now.
Those are two things I can think of that has helped from where I work currently.
Okay.
While not everybody enjoys the work from home thing, I mean, actually, it was limited to anybody that was not a manager. So, and then of course some key persons because of their roles. So it was
So only managers could work from home.
No, only managers
managers and above
would
must come in
always
every
come
day.
in.
But every other person.
I love
is
it. I
No
actually
way.
love it.
So that
I actually love it.
Why?
so I mean that was the approach they took. That was what they thought was best. So I mean organizations
Not bad.
differ. So but you see what that did was it helped people to save some money, right? What would have thrown
Absolutely.
into kind of saving. But then with every solution, there's always also a problem that it creates. At some point, that became an issue. Monitoring these people working remotely. Somebody is receiving calls in the marketplace because they're not being as effective as they used to be. But again, you find ways to also manage those because whatever solutions you have to offer, you should always think about the impact. There's always going to be
Something.
Yeah.
So, but those are just two things I can think of right now
Yeah.
that has been implemented. I'm sure there are so many other things that you're thinking about. But yeah. Then also sometime last year thereabouts, there was some because of the inflation, people had been really complaining. People are insatiable really. Complaining, please, we're suffering, there's no money, this is okay, fine. So before anybody even started to raise any concerns, executive management thought, what, let's look at the salary adjustment for everybody that cuts across board. So you thought about some percentage increments that you just placed on everybody's salary, which was a good thing. Now, less than a year after, we want more money. It's not enough, but that back and forth, it's key. You have to give people room to always dialogue and express these things, and then find creative ways to also approach them. If it is not by communicating by transparency and communication, maybe by other kinds of initiatives that they're trying to implement.
Amazing. So outside of transparency, right, as solutions, what other strategy, because I know that you were about to go into it when we started. So what other strategies, would you say, again, this is for organizations who are unable to implement a financial or a salary review. Because to be very honest, as much as we know that we all want salary review, not a lot of organizations would be able to afford that. Because
sometimes even the ones that can afford it, they don't want to do it.
Those ones, they are not. Those ones are not in this. Are not part of the questions I'm asking for.
So-
for those that can actually not afford it.
So there are entities that have actually, tried some creative ways around it. Rather than do a salary increment, they just did a one-off payment,
Per year or
Lump sum?
like just
just a lump sum payment, and say, you know what, guys,
Okay.
while we cannot pay we cannot come into salary increments, we would, maybe give you this amount of money at this point in time. Hold on to that first. This is on
Hold
take
body.
body. We'll talk about it later. But again, not everything is about money. And I know it's easier to talk about things like this one. They say it's when you have money that I can say not everybody
and
has
he
money.
has money, guys.
So please. So, but what is most important is that dialogue. And people need to feel
Heard.
their dignity is very key, and how you manage is utmost. And so that's one, right? Transportation, and maybe companies should start thinking about reinventing or reintroducing staff bosses. People that live very far remote distances can join the staff bus to the office. That helps a bit. There could be bulk. They could have bulk purchase arrangements, whereby if you want to buy a bag of rice, a bag of rice is very expensive, but it's more expensive if you went to buy congos of rice in the market, pints of rice. So if you had like a bulk arrangement, HR could have those kind of strategies where if you needed something, come in and
Married in bulk.
and then
so that's lesser.
they could leverage on the economies of scale to help to drop the price and help get people. There's also the subsidies. You could have canteens in the office. People coming to eat at subsidized rates, or even at no extra fees at all. Just go in there, eat food, and go. These are small things that they might not cost as much, but their impact on your people will be really, really high. Food vouchers, and stuff like that. I've spoken about remotes and hybrid operations. There could be well-being days, maybe just some just hang out and then just talk about your issues. An open day, talk about things. Just we're all in together. So let's just, and then healthcare plans, HMO, like I said earlier, and then just there are others, right, that could be explored. But this is just a few that I think could be really. I mean, even the bulk purchasing thing. You're not spending management's money, are you?
Yeah.
You're literally spending employees' money, but because you're buying in bulk, you're helping to organize that in bulk. You get to savings.
And subsidized to an extent as well. And the fact that this would also just make them feel
We're in together.
loved, cared for, and all those kind of things. Thank you so much for all of your nuggets today. I mean, very, just right on time. But I think that also this is just like for HR people as well. While you're also, I mean, we're all for advocating for people. It's the major reason why we're there anyways, but while we're advocating, let's not also forget, let's not also lose sight of the business as well. Because, you look silly if you're advocating and you have no idea what the business is going through. You get what I mean? So it's the reason why I always say, HR and finance, they have to be best of friends. You have to be friends so that so that you understand what's going on, what's coming in, what's not coming out, when they can pay, when they cannot pay, just so that you have this information to be able to guide you through whatever it is that you're doing as well.
So one of my bosses will always say that you have to understand the business.
Absolutely.
It's not enough to just be a salary earner. You really have, and especially when it comes to HR, right, and other key sensitive roles, you really have to understand business, because you cannot have answers from what you don't understand.
Sure.
You just mentioned all of that, and I thought it would also be good to say this, that HR is not just about policies and payroll, hiring and firing people, ensuring that people stay in line and are aligned, stuff. It's about the people, really. It's in a struggling economy, right? The biggest opportunity will be to lead with empathy. I've spoken very extensively on that.
Balancing empathy with business needs.
Yes. Innovate with constraints. The business constraints are there. You have to be able to innovate and then be creative about solutions that could have impact, and then build trust. Trust is key through transparency. You can't be saying one thing and your body language is doing something else. You cannot be, like I said, you cannot be saying there's no money and you're buying brand new cars. There's no money if you're traveling overseas. It sends the wrong message.
Across, yeah.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts generally.
Thank you very much, Ife, for sharing. So whether you are in HR or you are just an employee like me that's trying to struggle with this economy,
God.
I hope that this episode helps remind us that empathy is key. Also, understanding is key. It's one thing to say, oh, I'm an employee, my company should increase my money, but also understand where is your organization right now. Are they struggling? Are they thriving? I'm an employee. Like, I feel like this economy is after my life. To be very honest, I
It's
feel
after
so.
all of our lives.
But to be honest, I also understand that the economy is also after the business's life, because it's like we're spending money. And big ups to organizations that actually spend in dollars but earn in naira.
That's the worst.
It's terrible. It's actually terrible. And so we also need to understand where the business is coming from. We also just need to try our best to be very understanding and accommodating. And for businesses that can afford, again, one of the main theme of this episode is to show that not everything is about the salary review. There are other things outside of spending money, right, that can also help ensure that the morale of the employees is kept intact. So let's explore that. More than ever, let's be more empathetic to each other. Let's be understanding, and let's all just have amazing career as we all grow. Thank you once again, Ife, for coming.
Thank you so much. And also for business owners, HR professionals who maybe are struggling on coming up with ideas on what to do at these times, this episode is for you. So listen and hopefully you implement this. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. We laughed, we learned, and hopefully, just hopefully, we have changed the way you see HR for good.
If you love this episode, even if you just mildly enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends, your co-workers. Remember, we're on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and Jamit.
Until next time, keep thriving, keep surviving, and remember, HR is beyond just hiring and firing of tools for the management.
Catch you on the next one.
Bye.